When it's a cold, rainy day, I'm in the mood to make pasta. And I'm going to show you how to make pasta sheets from scratch and serve it in a northern Italian lasagna. Now, this lasagna doesn't have a red sauce or mincemeat in it. It's all about ham, bechamel, and loads of cheese. So let's get on to the most important part, which is making the pasta dough. I'm using a Tipo 00 flour. Now this flour is a mid-protein flour and it's ideal for pasta making, just like these lasagna sheets. So I start with about 400 grams into a food processor and a pinch of salt. And then for the eggs, now you can just use yolks if you want a really rich dough. I don't want mine to be overpowering, so I'm using 5 whole eggs along with a splash of extra virgin olive oil. Give that a quick whisk just to break up the eggs. And then I'm going to place the lid on my food processor. And with the motor going, I'm going to add all of the egg mixture. So I'll slowly add in all of that egg mixture. And then you want to knead it for about 5 minutes, and then I'm going to place it onto a board. Give it a good knead with your hands for another 2 to 3 minutes, then into some Glad wrap and into the fridge to chill completely. While that dough is resting in the fridge for about an hour, I'm going to make the bechamel. So I've just been melting some butter. To this, I'll add about 1/4 cup of plain flour. And at this stage, it's called a roux, which means a combination of flour and butter. And we do want to cook that off just for a moment, so we take away the raw flavour of the flour. So keep stirring it. And once it starts to form into a paste like this, we can start adding the milk. Now you need about 4 cups of milk. We'll add a small amount to start with and give it a mix with a wooden spoon. Add a little more. You don't want to add all your milk at once. If you do that, we're going to get lots of lumps. So I like to work my milk in slowly, a little more. And then once it starts to form a smooth, thick mixture like this, then you can transfer over to a whisk and then little by little again adding the rest of the milk. Now this will thin out and then it'll come to the boil and thicken up. Once it thickens, we'll take it off the heat, season it with some nutmeg, salt and pepper, and then the cheese. You can use any hard cheese you like. I'm using a Buffalotto. Bechamel's done, so it's time to start rolling out our dough. So it's chilled nicely. You just need it to rest before you start rolling. And you know you've got great pasta dough when you can put your finger through it and it bounces back. See, my print comes back? That's the perfect indication that the gluten has worked enough as we've kneaded it in the food processor and by hand. So I'm going to cut this into 4 even parts. I like to do it into strips because I find it much easier to put through the pasta machine. So we'll start with this little bit here, press it down, and this is the fun part, rolling out the pasta dough. We'll place it through the machine and then we're going to roll it. Now this process is called laminating. What we're doing is, again, working that gluten so we get a beautiful fine pasta dough. So fold it, feed it through the machine again. So I'm going to roll the pasta dough through this wide setting 3 to 4 times. Then notch by notch, I'm going to reduce it so it gets thinner and thinner. Again, working the dough through it 3 to 4 times. So I'm going to do this with all the dough so we've got lots of pasta sheets to start forming a lasagna. Okay, all the rolling is done. We've got beautiful fresh lasagna sheets. Now for the layering. So I like to start with some bechamel. You don't want to overdo it. You just need a few spoonfuls just to cover the base. So you can spread it out quite significantly. So 2 spoonfuls and then just get it all into the corners there. This is going to be the base for our potatoes. So it's quite a rich, really wintry style lasagna, this one. So next, the potatoes. I'm just using Desiree potatoes and I've cut them really thin. See how you can almost see straight through the potatoes? You can do this on a mandolin. The reason I want them to be super thin is because there's going to be a few layers of this and I want it to cook in the same amount of time as the pasta and the rest of the ingredients. So one layer of potatoes covering that bechamel all the way across. And if they overlap a little bit, that's okay. Just don't overlap it too much. So think of this as a cross between lasagna, a potato bake, all those Moorish dishes that we love so much. Next, some ham. I'm using some shaved ham, and we can be quite generous with the ham here. We'll just spread that over and using really thin layers. If you wanted this to be 100% vegetarian recipe, and I have done this before, I've roasted off some mushrooms and chopped them up, and that was the other layer as opposed to the ham. It's a fantastic option if you wanted a vegetarian style lasagna. Another drizzle of bechamel just over the top. Spread that quite roughly. And then our pasta sheets. Now, this is why I love fresh pasta sheets, because you can cut them so they fit perfectly. We don't want them to overlap, so we'll start with one. We'll just measure it out. So about there, cut it in half. On it goes, press down on it, and then the next one can go on top. And then we just need one more little piece here. So again, measuring it and sort of doing a bit of a collage with our lasagna sheets. Great. Now we're just going to repeat the layers, so more bechamel, potatoes and ham. And then in this middle layer, what I like to do is add more cheese. So I've got some mozzarella and some provolone cheese. I'll also add some to the top right at the end because this needs to be super cheesy. It then gets covered with some foil. We're going to place it into the oven for about 35 minutes, 180 degrees. Take the foil off and cook it for a further 25 minutes until it's bubbly and golden brown. I'm pretty impressed with this. Look how caramelised the topping is. Do allow it to rest. You want your lasagna to rest for at least 20 minutes before serving. It will still be hot because it's such a large lasagna, and I'm going to cut a portion out to serve up. It's perfectly cooked. Now, the best way to test if it's cooked is just to grab your knife and pierce it straight through the centre. If it goes through easily, you know the potatoes are cooked. If it's not, just leave it in the oven for another 15 to 20 minutes or until those potatoes are cooked. Nothing worse than an undercooked potato. All right, let's get a big piece of this and look at that. Gooey, cheesy, hammy goodness. This is one serious lasagna. And because it's so rich, I always love to serve this with just a simple green salad, some lemon with it. That is a cross between a delicious potato bake and a lasagna. And what makes this so special are those lasagna sheets. Just making the effort to make them from scratch, you'll really taste the difference. There you go. Yummo. That's a mammoth lasagna.